Hello everyone. Today I have a great gaming deck for you. So let's get into it by checking out the deck we are looking at today, and it is right here. We have Gaming Mona and the Fatui Pyro Agent. Now, the main thing about this deck is the use of the Vaporized Blessing, and more specifically the Searing Burn, which gives us -2 discount to our Pyro character's elemental skills. We'll get to see that later on in the game, and otherwise the deck has been mostly optimized so that you can spam as many skills with Gaming as is possible. You can see we have 3 switches. We have, of course, the Woven Die. We have some discounts from Golden Droop, a lot of draw power to get all of the cards we need, Wolf's Greystone for extra damage, as well as the Stadium of Sacred Flame, as the HP and the damage bonus, of course, have a synergy with Gaming. I mean, the damage burst, no surprise, is good for any character, but the healing synergizes well with the burst, where you need more HP in order to not consume those Manjai stacks. The burst grants Gaming. Other than that, we are running the Rhythm of the Great Dream, of course, to discount Wolf's Greystone along with Shadow King and Gamblers. Of course, because we are only running one 3-cost card, that is the reason why I'm using Great Dream instead of Golden House. Of course, if you were running, let's say, Tenacity of the Millilith as well in this deck, I mean, if you want to do that, then Golden House is the better option, but in this version we only have the Wolf's Greystone as a 3-cost card, so the Great Dream is a better choice. You can also see this, I haven't lost yet, and I'd rather lose money myself. You can very well switch them out, for example, Boar Princess, and then just take away Weeping Willow or Sealy for Heart of Cabrina or other free artifacts of your choice. Perhaps the final mention about the deck, Pyro Resonance is here only for the show. You do not need Pyro Resonance. If you really like this card, keep 1 copy, but honestly, you don't need Pyro Resonance in this deck. Mona is here only to really activate the Vaporized Blessing, as well as giving us the fast action switch from her passive skill. And I guess I could end this deck overview by mentioning you can absolutely replace Fatui Pyro Agent for whatever Pyro unit you like. For this deck specifically, I would recommend perhaps another Greatsword Claymore user. For example, Diluc works very well, since both Diluc and Gaming can equip Wolf's Greystone, and if you're running Diluc, you might as well add more weapons into the deck and then take Golden House instead of the Rhythm of the Great Dream, or perhaps both Golden House and Rhythm of the Great Dream, because like I said, you don't need Pyro Resonance. But I'm using Fatui Pyro Agent mostly because he got buffed in the latest update. Now that he has 11 HP, he makes for a good, decent off-field tank that usually survives with a decent amount of HP even later on in the game. Anyway, that's enough about the deck. Let's get into the replays. So, for our first game, we have a Blast from the Past, Ayaka Yoimiya Pyro Agent. Now, that used to be a very much of a meta deck way back when TCG was released, but I mean, you can still see success with that, but I would definitely say the Riot's Lee Yoimiya version is these days much much better. But the game plan for the deck, as you can see here, first and foremost, because once again the Vaporous Blessing guarantees you good dice round 1, start with Garming, go for Mona skill. Why start with Garming? Because Garming skill will immediately switch you to Mona, meaning that there's really no fear of, you know, Garming taking damage from the opponent if your opponent starts first. Or like, if they are, for example, you are afraid of a fast action switch and a big reaction damage coming to Garming, Garming skill will switch you to Mona, so there's nothing to fear in regards of that. Secondly, switching from Garming to Mona means you can do Mona skill round 1, of course, when you have good dice from the Vaporous Blessing. Whether the blessing activates or not, round 2 you are on Mona. Mona's summon from the skill has activated, you can fast action switch to Garming and activate the Vaporized Blessing. Not to mention, because you end your round on Mona, your Garming is safer from damage. The only exception to starting with Garming comes when your opponent plays the Thunder Manifestation. You do not want the Thunder Manifestation's Lightning Rod onto your Garming, you want that on Mona, so in that sort of matchup start with Mona, but otherwise it's always Garming skill, Mona skill round 1.
Fire hazard.
What will you do with the rest of your round 1 dice though? Because of course, because we get a free switch from Garming skill, we spend exactly 6 dice each round. Well, you have 2 opportunities. If you get the blessing to activate, you can play the blessing for guaranteed good dice round 2. You see me do this quite often, since I like guaranteed good dice. But of course, if you play it round 1, you will get no value from the discounts the round you play the blessing. So round 1, the alternative to playing the blessing is to play whatever draw cards you have. For example, in this game I could have started with Sealy and then played the Shadow King onto Mona, or actually it's Shadow of the Sand King. Shadow King, yeah, anyway, Sand King, Shadow King, who cares? The point is, you can play it, but it's absolutely fine to go for setup. Usually the determining factor whether you want to play the blessing or setup is if you have a Wolf's Greystone in hand or not. For example, in this game I didn't have Wolf's Greystone in hand, so it would have been better for me to actually play the Sealy plus Shadow King instead of the blessing. But at the very least, I have guaranteed good dice there. 2 usable Pyro, 2 usable Hydro. Now round 1 onwards, you don't really do skills with Mona unless you need to stall. Only do skills with Garming. That is also the reason why we are using the Edict of Absolution Arcane card. It is here specifically so that we can stay on Garming and simply spam Garming's skill. Because the main point about this deck is most opponents do not respect the amount of damage Garming can do. Because if you look at the base damage, it's 1 plus 2, meaning for 1 skill you deal 3 damage. But your opponents do not realize that over time that damage actually does stack up quite a lot. We, by the way, got lucky there with the Fury from the Mystic Soup, meaning that, I mean, otherwise Ayaka could have applied Cryo to my Pyro Agent. Of course, now my opponent does have the stealth damage reduction. I even got a Star Sands, so I got no advantage of the fact that I had full energy, and now I kind of have to just play around with what I have. Stadium of Sacred Flame for that healing. Of course, the stealth, we went for a skill there to get the damage reduction from the stealth. This is why I like Pyro Agent in this deck, there's that a lot of survivability, as you can see, thanks to the damage reduction you gain from the skill. Not to mention, because we have the discount from the Searing burn, our Pyro Agent can just simply spam the skill over and over again. And unless they now gain another star signs, we should be absolutely fine. You can see with the Arcane Guard and Mystic Soup for healing, along with Stadium of Sacred Flame that will heal us after one more skill. And looks like they didn't have another star signs, meaning I get to heal a lot. Of course there I did see Serenity, I did see the discount to your skill, but once again, because we have Searing burn, because we need to be afraid of their burst, the damage reduction was a better choice. Anyway, let's get into the next game. Now we see the Yaemiko Escoffier Skirk. Definitely like after last patch where we saw Chaska Skirk, now different versions of Super Contact Skirk have definitely been the meta this season. After all, those decks are less... they're harder to counter with, you know, the buffed, well, maybe not buffed, changed passing of judgments. Arcane God.
Show them.
Of course, Arcane Ban exactly the same. We go for a Scamming Start with the skill. Now we see our opponent doesn't give us the immediate elemental reaction, so we kind of go for some unorthodox plays here. You can see, because I had 2 Owen dice, if I didn't have these Owen dice, I would not have gone for this move. But because I have the Owen die, I do go for the move of fast action from Mona to Garming to get that reaction. And of course, because their summons, you know, the Yaemiko summon isn't in the second stage where it actually deals damage, it's absolutely fine to end with Garming here. And once again, I did go for the round 1 blessing, even though I don't get any value from the discounts round 1, simply because this guarantees me good dice round 2. Not to mention the guaranteed 2 Hydro dice can be in this scenario used for the Wolf's Gravestone. That is also the reason why you see me often when I roll dice, I do keep the Hydro dice, the guaranteed, simply because you can use those guaranteed Hydro dice to play your Wolf's Gravestone. Of course, in this this scenario, simply the 2 guaranteed dice would have been enough since I have the Rhythm of the Great Dream. Now, surprised to no one, my opponent goes for the 3-cost Electric Surge. Definitely, this is the reason why any Superconduct deck these days is a viable choice to play this card alone. Like even if you activate the effect twice per round only, it is still very, very good. We of course go for the weapon for some extra damage. Of course we see our opponent doesn't have any dice left. We are only going to take summon damage this round, meaning I get free reign here, dealing as much damage as I can. Now unfortunately they happen to have the Covenant of Rock Arcane. I honestly wasn't expecting that, which is why I hadn't played I'd Rather Lose Money myself this round. But of course, had I in any way suspected that to be the case, I would have absolutely played I'd Rather Lose Money myself. Now in this scenario, I could go for a little more damage with Garmin, and that is exactly what I do because they are on their Skirk. And currently the 2 scary things on my opponent's side of the field is Yaemiko's burst and Skirk's possible burst. Which is why I deal as much damage as I can and then end my round on Mona to tank the summon damage. So this way, there's no way for Skirk's burst to take out more than 1 character. There's also the added benefit that my opponent playing the Void Rift activates talent, you know, for only 1 damage, meaning that they get no value. They cannot easily take out Mona here. Now this is a rare occasion where the Pyro Resonance is actually very good. But like I said at the start of the video, it's very rare, because like once again I could have just fast action switched to Garming and with the Wolf's Greystone take out Skirk. The only reason why the Pyro Resonance play here is better, because now Yaemiko's Burst, the main 4 damage, will be spent on taking out Mona. If my opponent decides to go for it.
Am I still too weak?
So there are those very rare occasions which kind of justify playing 1 Pyro Resonance in this deck. But like once again, honestly, you are probably better off without any.
Let's go.
Is there time to sneak in some dim sum first?
And here we get to see, even though my opponent takes out 2 of my characters, because I end my round, well, no matter who ends their round first here, my summon will take out Yaemiko, but their summon will not take out Fatui Pyro Agent, and even if they had gone for a normal attack with Yaemiko to activate the Blessing, I would have ended my turn first, so the summon would have taken out Yaemiko anyway.
Right here.
So I simply end my round, because this guarantees me of course the victory.
What a dreadful ending.
Anyway, let's get into the next game. Now in this match I want you to pay attention. Actually, you don't need to pay attention, you are going to see. This is the reason why I'm running Stadium of Sacred Flame in this deck. Once again, there, round 1 mistake, I should have kept the Wolf's Gravestone, but I don't always have the feel for it. You know, sometimes you're like, it's fine, I don't need to keep it, but usually you want to keep Wolf's Gravestone round 1. Simply so that you can play it as soon as possible. If it's in your starting hand, it's good to keep Wolf's Gravestone. But sometimes you just get the feeling that, nah, I'm just gonna draw it anyway, I don't need it in my starting hand. And this match is an example of where we do not get the Wolf's Greystone, but we get to see why Stadium of Sacred Flame is very good for this deck. Now, my opponent is playing, let's say, perhaps an unorthodox Ineffa deck. You can see the tenacity of the Millet General's Ancient Helm weapons. Very respectable, of course. Also in this match, because I do realize that, hold on, I actually do need my Wolf's Greystone to do enough damage through their shields. I'm now, instead of playing the Blessing, I'm actually searching for the weapon. Except I remembered wrong once again, of course I do end up playing the Blessing. But the point is, I actually did spend some dice there, and I was fully prepared to play the other strategies as well, simply to gain more cards, but I did end up going for the round 1 Blessing once again. So even though I play it once again, reminder to you, you don't need to play it round 1, it's absolutely fine to go for whatever setup cards you have to draw more cards. Because you can see here, my opponent, like, I'm really looking for a weapon now, because otherwise that amount of shields is simply going to negate all the damage I do. Now that even Hydro Tulpa has one. And they even have food cards, like. It's quite clear to me that they are going for the very stall tactics in this game, so I really need some form of extra damage. Here once again, why Garming synergizes well with the Searing Burn. Since the burst, the Manchai effect also discounts our elemental skill, combined with the Searing Burn, your elemental skills will do only one, well, they will only cost 1 dice twice per round, making it a very good deal to simply spam your skill. Actually, I'm going to take this opportunity. Like I mentioned at the start, Garming is very good with the Searing Burn. Diluc also is very good with the Searing Burn. Other than those two characters, Grab is decent, but you can achieve the same thing by simply running Ellen. What is it? The Gold Flame Quagosaur's Tyrant is very good with the Searing Burn if you are going for a more stall tactic with that character. Lastly, the Abyssal Dragon, the Nadlan Abyss Dragon. That one also is quite good with the Searing Burn, but outside of like those 5 characters, like even Fatui Pyro Agent isn't that good with the Searing Burn with the discounts. Like this is like number 1 character to use this Searing Burn blessing with is Diluc, definitely. Gaming is a good second option, and then grab Gold Flame Tyrant, Abyss Dragon. They are fine with using the Searing Burn, but like most of the time I don't remember the name of the other blessing, but the +1 damage and +1 heal, that simply works with every vaporized deck you can make. The Searing Burn only works if you are running like a certain specific sort of characters that actually do get value from spamming their skills. Like the Pyro Agent, like I mentioned, he is here more because of the high HP and damage reduction, and less because he has synergy with the discount. Of course, we did see in that very first game that the Fatui Pyro Agent is good simply spamming the skill if you are against an opponent that can deal a lot of damage. But yeah, surprised to no one I go for the Gaming. Of course I know there's no way they can do a lot of damage. They are using enough, but all of their damage comes from the electric shocks and the possible end phase. Here I go for the Sacred Flame, and you get to see it shine quite well in this match. Also there you see the Edict of Absolution. This is why we have the Arcane. It synergizes very well with Gaming since you do not switch characters, so for the cost of 1 elemental skill you get the skill damage and you get the normal attack damage. And you can see I just simply keep on attacking. Now Stadium of Sacred Flame already on 4 stacks, looking very good. And because the heal we got from it, the Manchai stacks from the burst are still not being consumed, I get to play 3 Gamblers once again. That's why the Great Rhythm of the Dream. Great Dream of the Rhythm. Rhythm of the Great Dream is good for this deck. That's how we get our 3 Gamblers. And you can see here an attack after an attack after an attack, and we have the damage buff from the Stadium of Sacred Flame, which allowed us to finish this game off nice and clean. So that's why we are running Stadium of Sacred Flame, but we still have one more game for today. Now, during this last game, I would like to talk about the more difficult matchups with my with this deck. Definitely AoE damage.
I'll start my warm-up routine.
AoE damage is a very difficult matchup for this deck because we are relying on keeping Gaming safe like until end of round 3. Not to mention we want to keep the Pyro Agent on high HP so that Pyro Agent can clean up after Gaming is taken out. But against AoE damage, that simply isn't possible. All of our characters are going to take damage against, for example, Ganyu, Raiden, Genshin deck. That matchup you only really win if you get a very good round 2.
Congratulations!
Other difficult matchups with this deck, I I'd say, from the little experience I've had, for example, this matchup we are against adventure decks, but more specifically decks where they put all of their resources onto one character, basically one character carry decks, you know, high HP, they have fight for the death, they are increasing their max HP with whatever means possible for them. Those sort of decks can be difficult matchups. Once again, you can absolutely win against them if you get a very good round 2 and very good round 3. But if you don't get a very good round 2 or round 3, those matchups can be very, very hard. Of course, the exception to those sort of matchups, grab, of course, every grab deck is, you know, every deck with a grab is a grab deck, and grab is the carry in those decks. But because we are running Wolf's Gravestone, grab is one of the easiest matchups for this deck. Grab decks are very slow at the start of the match, like the first 3 rounds, grab decks are very, very slow, while this deck is very, very fast. As such, grab is definitely one of the easiest you can face with this deck. Once again, in this case, we are once again against Inefa. You can see I play a bunch of the cards with the cost increase and electric shocks, simply to guarantee that I don't take any unnecessary damage. Now in this case I didn't immediately play for the Wolf's Gravestone, simply because I wanted to instead collect energy for Gaming. Not to mention, if I happen to draw another Great Rhythm of Dream, we get the discount for the Wolf's Gravestone. Of course I didn't get lucky with that, unfortunately. Now you can see in this match I actually haven't been able to deal that much damage to my opponent, and not to mention the fact that Genuine Whale only needs 3 more experience to activate. Of course they are running the Crocodile, meaning that they can heal quite a lot. Now it does seem a little scary, you know, Crocodile Burst, that's damage incoming. But it doesn't matter. Electric Shock on the Wolf's Gravestone doesn't matter. The reason, by the way, I immediately tuned my other Wolf's Gravestone was to make sure that that card doesn't get untunable, because then I would have to spend another 3 dice simply to play, you know, both Wolf's Gravestones to not end up with one card stacking up a bunch of the electric shocks. No surprise they went for these burst with the Crocodile. You can see they have healed basically to max HP, or the same HP they have at the start of the game. I don't go for any more Gaming skills because I want to keep Gaming a little bit alive here. Why did I go for Gaming now? Because, I mean, technically they can take out Gaming right here. They have to simply do 2 skills with the Crocodile. Well, I was at this point starting to think, okay, this match is kind of lost. Like, what can I do in this scenario? They're about to heal from Genuine Whale. They have, you know, good HP, talents, artifacts equipped. It's starting to look very, very bad. But for whatever reason, they don't go for any Crocodile skills here. Because I was completely sure that, okay, they are going to, you know, Crocodile skill, which will, with the Nim Stream, activate the Genuine Whale, and Gaming will be like 1 or 2 HP depending on what skill they decide to do. But they go for Inefa. Now actually I'm kind of interested to see. Yeah, they even had the dice. Why did they not go for, like, okay, that clearly a mistake on my opponent's behalf. They should have absolutely gone for like a Crocodile skill or normal attack on the Gaming instead of switching around. Like, I don't know if they were trying to get more value from Genuine Whale or something, but like, one of your characters is only going to get healed. You might as well have done it with the Crocodile immediately, because now, you know, Inefa is only 4 HP. Once again, trying to play as many cards as possible this round to avoid any electric shock damage. Now I know there is the possibility of the what is it, the Bone Cruncher block, I was kind of expecting that, okay, they are going to attack with Serpent, but they actually switch back to Crocodile, telling me that, okay, perhaps they don't have that good hand cards. I go for the Burst, no surprise there, unfortunately no Arcane card in hand, but we still have the usage of the Searing Burn, meaning I get to do a couple attacks here thanks to the Woe and Die. Like so.
Sorry, pal.
Now, if I could have, I would have absolutely switched back to Gaming and taken out Crocodile there, but unfortunately there was no way for me to do that this round. At least the one upside of them running in Nephi is the fact that they have actually no AoE damage outside of Swirl, so even though the Pyro Agent now has Electro, I don't actually, you know, Gaming doesn't take any damage. Perhaps surprised no one, I do Pyro Agent's skill here with the discounts, making it in fully free. I of course pre-play the Gamblers once again to minimize the possibility that I end up with a cost increased card that I cannot tune that has a bunch of electric shocks. I immediately went for Gaming when they switched out from Crocodile, because of course the Nim Stream does give them a damage bonus on Crocodile, but neither the Serpent nor Innefa can take out the 4 HP Gaming. And there we get the Gambler's proc. Not to mention, even if they now take out Gaming, I have the I haven't lost yet into Fatui Agent's Burst. And there you can see, probably because they didn't have any Bone Crunchers in hand, they didn't go for a Burst. But of course, if they, you know, I'm sure if they had Bone Crunchers in their hand, they would have gone for the Burst to heal their characters, but they went for a skill because they clearly didn't have any. I haven't lost yet. Burst takes out Crocodile. I still have usages of the Searing Burn, meaning I can do more than enough attacks here. And I even get the Edict of Absolution a little late, yes, but why did I go for a skill there, you might wonder? Because if you do a normal attack, you will lose 1 point of stealth. This is basically, you know, you deal +1 or you take -1 damage for each stacks, and each time you deal +1 damage, 1 usage is spent. By redoing a skill, now the Thunderground will only deal 1. Actually, yeah, it will only deal 1 damage here, meaning that next round I have the most possible amount of heal, HP and protection, because now they have to deal 5 damage instead of just 4. But of course, if I had, instead of a skill, if I had gone for a normal attack, that would have been +1 damage to me for the cost of 1, or 1 less stealth stack. But anyway, now that I have the Fatui Agent's Burst, it is GG, they have nothing to protect the Serpent with, and that will be all for today. I see you all in the next one.